I see it's recording
Thank
now.
you. All right. There we
All right,
go.
folks, let's do this. So this is gonna be fun because I just wrapped up the last little bits on my keynote aspects with this presentation right beforehand. So we're gonna see if there's any thing that pops up that's I didn't expect. That's what makes it fun, right? So let's see here. My name is Mark Ruth. If you don't know who I am, I'm modern work coach at Atlassian. I talk all thing practices all the time. I go out to community events, do these all these sorts of things just to kind of spread some of the cool stuff we're doing around teamwork. And today we are going to be talking about the quest for awesomeness and on a team. And to do that, if I can share my screen out, let's see here. I gotta move this around. Oh. Do you see it? Do you see Quest for Awesomeness on the screen?
We do. Perfect.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. All right, so today we're going to talk about 4 exercises to embark on with your team to make your team awesome. Now, in order to really get into the mode here, one thing I want to do, if I can get it, oh man, that's what I hate about Keynote. Sometimes I've got to put myself in the scene. So if we're on a quest, I know I'm not going to be at a barbecue, but I am going to be on a ship because you know what? We're on a quest for some awesome teamwork treasure. So now let's go back into this. All right. So I have found this scroll. It's called the Teamwork Quest scroll. And I found it gives us some nice hints in terms of how we can unlock teamwork in our team. So let's take a look at it. This is where we're going to go for the next 15 minutes. This scroll is going to again tell us a little bit about where we're going. We found this map. And in this map, we can see we're starting right here at the beginning. But in order to hit that awesome teamwork state, we've got to hit it all the way over to the other side of this map. Now, we're going to go through a couple different places on our way getting there. We're going to stop by the Forest of Direction. We're then going to head into the Valley of Responsibility. We're going to trudge through the Desert of Agreement, and then finally go through the Jungle of Networks. So y'all ready to head with me on this journey? Yes, I love it. I love it. All right, so let's do this thing. So first, we're going to start off. We're going to make our way into the Forest of Direction. So I'm going to be kind of giving you a kind of a storyline to kind of go around with this too. So let me introduce you to a scenario here. So let's assume we have a team. And a lot of times when we work as a team, we assume we all have a goal we're going towards. We assume we're all laser focused. But the reality is most times on our teams, kind of looks like this. We kind of think we're in the same area, but we end up going to different directions. We're like, hey, I thought we were working on this. And it leads us to have this lack of shared understanding on our team. So what would we have to do? We have to find a way to kind of narrow in this focus so that as we do our things, we're all working in the same direction. And so the first exercise that you can run with your team to help do this is what we call a team poster. Now, team posters is actually a retrofit of an older play we had called a project poster, but it was designed in a new way to help us really focus in on that idea of a team. Now, a team poster is just that. It tells you everything you need to know about a team. It tells you things like links to who's on the team, your Atlas directory if you're using that. It gives you information on the problem your team is trying to solve. What are we trying to do here? Who are our customers? How do we actually measure our success at the end of the day? And then what's the actual solution? So that way now as a team, I can always go and look, say, this is what we're trying to do. This is the measure we're trying to hit. And now others too in your organization can do the same thing. And so if you're struggling with that direction, if you're struggling with that narrowing, recommend Team Poster in the team playbook. So free online, go out there, Atlassian Team Playbook, look up Team Poster. We'll send this out afterwards so that you have links to all these things too. But this is a great play. Take 60 minutes with your team to actually get that direction and that alignment you crave. So at this point, we've made our way through the Forest of Direction. We made it through. Whew, that was close. So now we've got to head into the Valley of Responsibility. Now in the Valley of Responsibility, we've got to figure out, we have some direction, but how do we actually get stuff done when we're moving in that direction? So kind of playing back to our example, we've got a target, we've got a team. Cool, we feel good about ourselves, but now we got to do stuff. How do we actually make sure we know who's doing what? How do we make sure we're all moving in the right, moving together, doing the right things? And so for us, what we look to do is we say, we've got to figure out in those responsibilities of a team, who's doing what? Let's get clear on what we consider our roles and responsibilities. Now, again, this is another play in our team playbook that I actually really think is unique and I like, because roles and responsibilities is something that I've done in many organizations. Everyone's probably done something of that where it's like, hey, what do you do? But what I really like about the way we run this play is that it's not just focused on me and telling you what I think I do. It actually focuses first on the team talking about what they think each role does. And so the way this thing works is that we first identify the roles on our teams. All right, we've got a developer, maybe a copywriter, all these types of roles. But instead of saying, all right, tell us what you do, as a team, we actually will say, okay, what do I think that role does? And when we have the team review all those roles. Now afterwards, then those people in those roles will review that list and let's say, here's what I think I do, and here's where there might be some deltas. Here, you might think I do this, maybe I don't think I do this, or maybe you were like, oh, I should be doing that. The goal here is to identify gaps, because when you're looking at your roles and responsibilities, it's easy to have those blinders onto what you do, but when you look in between the cracks, that's where it really matters. Now, again, just like the team poster, you can go out into the team playbook and find the roles and responsibilities play. Again, takes about 60 minutes. Great one to run. If you'd like, playing to my pirate ship example, there is a fun little exercise to get you warmed up called the pirate ship game, which I will ship along with this so you can check it out later. All right, so we've made it through the valley of responsibility. Now, I think it's time to make our way towards the desert of agreement. Oof, this one's a hard one. But I would say it's the most treacherous, but it's probably the most important thing that any team can go through. So in this example, when we're working as a team, we know what we're doing. We got our responsibilities. We know where we're going. We've got our team poster. But the thing is we're not just robots here. We're actually all bringing some uniqueness around ourselves to the actual team. We all have something different we're contributing in terms of our working styles, how we like to get feedback, how we like to collaborate. And so for us, we need to figure out, well, how do we agree on how we do those sorts of things? How do we agree in terms of how we collaborate? How about how we communicate? Or even things like how we actually improve together. You know, if you're in software, you probably might be following something like Scrum or you're doing retrospectives. If you're in marketing, that's not necessarily something you're focused on. So how does a team that doesn't already think about improving actually start thinking about it? And to do this is probably one of the most important plays, my favorite of them all, is actually building what we call working agreements. So working agreements are incredibly powerful because I like to say they make the implicit assumptions we have around how we work together very explicit. They help kind of bring that out. And so within the working agreement, we focus in on having teams identify things like your own preferences. Do you have things like, hey, I've got a family and so I can't come in until a certain time, or I can't start working here, or I have to stop at a certain time? Do I like to get feedback a certain way? But then it starts getting into team preferences. How do we use our communication channels? Do we use Slack or Teams a certain way? Do we use email? What kind of meetings or rituals do we have? And why do we have them? This way we don't let meetings get out of control. Same with things like how do we escalate issues? And then ultimately, like I said, how do we improve as a team? I think it's a really important thing for teams to be deliberate about how they want to do this. Because without that, again, we just make those assumptions. So if you're looking to do a play, working agreements is an amazing one. It's out there in the playbook. It gives you, each of these so far has a template out Confluence Cloud that you can just pull up and start using right off the bat to help guide you through that process. All right, so we've made it to the desert agreement. Final destination here on our journey is going to be the jungle of networks. Now, in the jungle of networks, this is actually a new area we're exploring, because the reality is that, at least in my opinion, I don't believe any one team, unless you're a team of like 10 people, can truly do work like independently. The world is just far too complex. So when we think about it, when we actually deliver work, we have a number of different teams that are usually, working together to get this done. And the thing is as we're doing work, we see all these kind of interactions. They cross lines all the time. And when that happens, sometimes they're really good interactions, because guess what? We have very proactive ways of collaborating. We have proactive ways of saying, hey, yeah, if I need this, I know this team's got it. I put it in this way. Now, maybe it's more reactive and you have some less than stellar ones where it's like, all right, we need help from, the performance team. So, I just know we got to go talk to Jim over there. If he'll squeeze us in, it'll be great. And then there's those relationships with teams that you're like, how do we work around this team? I don't want to talk to them. And I think we all have probably experienced a team in our lives like that, where you're like, oh, I don't really want to go to them. So the thing is when it comes down to things like dependencies and things like that, it's not really about the work. To me, it's about the relationships. And so this comes down to what we call is our network of teams play. It's one of our newest plays, and it's all about that cross-team collaboration. Now here you can see we do this in Trello, but we've got templates all over the place. And the whole idea here is to identify what teams you need maybe in the next 3 to 6 months to collaborate with. What's the health of those relationships? You typically go through this by essentially saying, hey, who are the teams we work with, and classifying? Are they critical to our success? Are they kind of, are they needed but not necessarily on the primary path? Or are they just completely off our radar? And then when you get that list, we encourage you to actually prioritize it and focus on the top 5 that may need some help. In this case, you're not then dividing across 20 different teams. You're saying, here are the 5 teams that we need to work on relationships the most with, because that's really what it's coming down to. How do we figure out how we collaborate together? And so if you go into the playbook, we've got a play around here that's focused in on this. It's a little bit longer play too, because it can be a little bit more complex as you're dealing with something that's all about how we collaborate with others, not just within our teams, but across teams. But it's a great one to run. We run it. We recently ran it on my team for a second time, and it's helping us focus on where do I want to actually spend some time actually building relationships across my organization. And so in this case, we're almost to that destination, right? We're almost there. But here's the thing. When we think about this, we can't just make it to that treasure chest, because in the end, dysfunction is that gap between what we know and what we actually do. It means that we may know now that these 4 practices can get us to being a high-performing, awesome team. But if we don't do those practices, we won't actually get there. We won't, even though we've made it so far in that journey, we won't finish that last leg. So there's a couple things I need y'all to do as we leave today and head in, as you think about how you want to embark on your quest for awesomeness. First, I want you to learn more about these plays I just talked about. I went through this really fast, but we've got a whole course. It's 30 minutes. It's free. It's on both YouTube and our learning site. And essentially, it walks through why you would run these plays, how you would run these plays, and more tips and tricks in there. Additionally, go out there and explore the Atlassian Team Playbook. Try it out. We've got 50 plays out there covering everything from what I've talked about today to things like retrospectives, to things like customer journey mapping. You're bound to find an area of opportunity. Go leverage it and then share it with others in your organizations. And if we do that, that's where we can wrap up that last leg in our journey. That's where we can hit that treasure. So with that said, folks, I think it's time to close that scroll up. And I just want to say thanks for the time. I truly appreciate you having me here. So yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Jimmy.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was absolutely awesome. Thank you. We appreciate that.
And the animations worked the way I wanted them to. So I'm excited about that.
All right, let me bring things back here. So we'll move right into our next presenter, Christine De La Rosa, who is going to talk to us about what the experts say about equitable collaboration. And I was very intrigued by that title. I can't wait to see what you have to tell us about this. So I will stop sharing and pass it over to you. You are welcome to take the floor.
Thank you. Can everyone still see the screen, even with the navigation out?
Yep.
Cool. I'm going to go and not go in presenter mode because I am not as rehearsed and want to see what slides are coming next. Folks, equitable collaboration is something that I have been focused on for the last several months, something that Atlassian is going to debut more externally in a few more months' time. And so what I'm excited about is not just to start sharing with all of you on what we have been finding from experts about equitable collaboration, but what I'm really excited about is, like, you're the first people, no joke, first people outside of Atlassian to hear us even use this term and talk about what we have found. So that said, I'm also going to preview the fact that we have one of our first pieces that is coming out to Harvard Business Review white paper on evolving equitable collaboration as the world evolves, as our companies are evolving, to Mark's point on working remotely, needing to figure out, like, do we even have the right people, the right cadences, the right networks anymore? But having said that, even though I'm so excited, it's all on the hush. So even though this is being recorded and potentially anyone in Canada can look at this, this is not really, this specific white paper is private. So if you could just, keep it between us and the hundreds of people that may be accessing this right now when the recording goes out, just know that we have a special bond and you're getting the preview beforehand because you know this stuff, and that you're an audience that I think thinks about teams, thinks about how people work together, wants the best for it. And so I think it's a safe group. So consider yourselves special because you are. All right. Only going over 4 things today, the meat of which is the second half. But first of all, like, what the heck is equitable collaboration? What does that mean? We'll talk about what it actually looks like once we understand it. And then I think the more helpful, actionable parts of what I want to talk to y'all about is, how do we resolve it? How do we resolve inequities? How do we promote more equitable ways of working? Are there barriers that we can look out for? How do we remove those barriers? And just like in general, what can we be more mindful of? Because most companies, most large teams are not experts in this. And so like the first step is sort of just identifying, figuring out what the right systems are to put in place to make environments a little bit better. But first, well, little Q&A. Let me see if I can actually see the chat at the same time. Oh, I can. I want to ask, whether it's in the chat or if you want to unmute or raise your hand and chat live, what actually does equitable collaboration look like for you? What does it mean? I'm not going to define it yet. In fact, based on what we talk about, I'll define it afterwards. But what do you think it is? This is as much of a nice little data point for us to take in at Atlassian as it is part of this presentation. And feel free to just unmute yourselves if you want to chat, or just put something in the text chat.
I think it has to do with fairness between everybody involved. That's not sort of a collaboration that's sort of mandated down on people.
Brandon, I love that. So I'm hearing 2 things actually. Fairness. So the word equitable in terms of like, are we having the same access to opportunity? Is it equal in that way? But also I love the second half of what you said in terms of it's not being mandated. It's not like, oh, here's a policy and we're checking off a box. It's like, is this naturally happening? Does that mean that the environment is doing it for us? That the processes we have in place just sort of like nudge us along to be more equitable? Like, absolutely, to both of those points. Anyone else? You can even give an example. Encore. Multiple applications, collaboration on a single medium. Cool, yeah. One interpretation I have of that is that there isn't just one way to do something, because people on teams are diverse and our personalities are diverse. The ways we want to work, the ways that we're learning and understanding and communicating are diverse. And so the idea of having multiple ways in or collaborating, but still connecting on that same single platform or team or channel, that makes a lot of sense, because to be equitable doesn't mean everybody uses the same exact thing. To be equitable doesn't mean that this is not a working thing, but like at lunch, everyone getting the same pizza with the same pizza toppings doesn't mean now it's equal. We're all getting the same thing. Like, well, some people have dietary restrictions. I'm lactose intolerant and can't have cheese. That will not be fair for me. So different things. Dennis, it's not a forced collaboration between teams by higher management. That's right. You can't force equitable collaboration. You can provide the type of environment for it, but you can't necessarily be in everybody's head and make people act a certain way to be equitable. Cool. Oh, and respectful, of course. So inherently, we didn't even talk about the why. Like, who cares? Why should we even be equitable? Like, because that's a sign of respect. That's kind. We would want that afforded to us. If we are in a minority of the group, if the majority of everyone loves working async and never wants to have a live meeting, but you crave that. You need the spar. You need some kind of like visual cues and feedback in a faster way. How do you accommodate for that too? Like, it would be disrespectful to just assume that, oh, well, most people want this one way. We all want to work remotely and never have meetings. That's not respectful. That's almost considering that you don't count. Your needs don't matter. And of course, the why behind equitable collaboration is respect. So you can actually be productive. Cool. So we kind of cover this, but the fact that there are inequities, I mean, that's a fact. That's true. And it happens everywhere. It can happen in your communication style. It can happen in how you receive information, how you distribute information. But there are a lot of different ways to do it. And so I'm just going to offer a few different areas that through multiple audits, not just at Atlassian, but many of our customers. And then in partnership, we did a quick thing with McKinsey about an audit of like where inequities did happen. And these 3 areas are the 3 general categories for where inequities happening. One is distributing resources, right up here. So think about how you a team lead delegates out work. Is it the first person they see in a meeting, like, oh, you're here and you asked for it, so I'm just going to give you this thing? Is that inequitable? Is it distributing resources in terms of, we'll just go by tenure, who has been here the longest? I'll provide you the most visible thing. Is that equitable? So distributing resources, that's one area. Offering opportunities. Opportunities don't have to, sorry, I just did that backwards. What I just said was offering opportunities. The first thing distributing resources is actually software, technology access, permissions, equipment, office things, budget, even, help, support on a project of like, oh, you can have access to 50% of this person's time. And this other team, we only have 2 times a quarter we can access them. You can have one of those 2 times. Like, that's distributing resources. My apologies. If anyone is watching this Zoom and wants to edit that and put it backwards, thank you. Likely that won't happen, but that was my attempt at a joke. But since most people are mute, I don't know if it's funny.
I thought it was hilarious.
Thank you. See, one example of I need some live immediate feedback, and that would be the equitable thing. Thank you, Mark. Okay, and the last area is designing teamwork practices. So it's not just when there are distribution of resources or the thinking about opportunities for people to take advantage of. It's the systems that are designed to hold all of these things. So it would be really hard for every team lead or project driver or Scrum Master or anyone to say, hey, I have to think about equity. Let me think about every single thing that I'm doing and if this is equitable. Like, it's the actual teamwork practices that are kind of holding that container. Many of you said in the chat, it's not management saying you do this and you do that. Like, it's the practices and the environments that we have that sort of hold whether or not we can we have equity in the way that we work together. So knowing what it means, if you put it all together, the back half is what I just said. So this looks really long, but the green part is what I just said. Equitable collaboration means that you're accounting for all of these structural either disadvantages or advantages that create disparities in team members' abilities to do their best work. And if you want to qualify it for when this happens, you can look at the green part: when distributing resources, offering opportunities, and designing teamwork practices. Shelley Williamson is someone who she used to head up our DEI team at Atlassian, but now she's the founder of Transforming Equity, and she has a really nice quote, which, spoiler alert, will be in that HBR white paper. Equitable collaboration is really about designing practices to make sure that there is clarity, consistency, and transparency in the workplace. Seems like a simple concept, but really hard to do, because that starts by acknowledging that systemic inequities exist, like in reality, in society, and they need to be designed out of our systems. So the rest of this talk is going to be more of the meat on how we see it on our teams, in our companies, and our larger departments. And in order to improve the inequities, those gaps, and shorten them or remove them altogether, we have to think about, like, how does this exist out in the world, and how can we remove that from our culture, from our space, from our practices, which is very hard because essentially it's your team against society. Society likes homogeneity. Society likes like, oh, it'd be easier to give everyone the same pizza instead of like giving them a menu of options. It would be much easier because it's efficient. That's natural. How do we resist against that? Okay. What it looks like up close. I'm going to go very quickly over this since this is recorded. You can just kind of pause and go back to these definitions, but just to really show what this looks like. Teams will feel it when they feel that psychological safety, no matter their how they identify functionally, their skill level, their tenure, any of that. They feel safe to express their ideas and work to their full extent. If they are limiting themselves, they're like, oh, I can't show this part of myself. Going back to Atlassian's open style of practices, like if you don't feel like you can fully work in a productive way because you have to hold back, you do not have the psychological safety, and that's something to improve upon. Teams produce it when there is some kind of system of accountability. So we talked a lot about systems design, our practices, the environmental design, how we can nudge people in the right direction. What will really help for equitable collaboration is this idea of accountability. It's, if you can't think of like, oh, I don't know what to design for, there's so many things to design for, just think about what holds us accountable. What measures what we're doing, what has a feedback loop to hold up a mirror? Is it a debriefing play? Is it a pulse survey internally to see what team health looks like? How are you holding yourselves accountable to check whether or not you're doing the right things? And then finally, teams know they're on the right track when you have A, emotional well-being, B, engagement, and C, retention. Those things automatically go up. If everything, I mean, assuming everything is equal across the board from a before and after, those things will automatically go up when you have more equitable collaboration. Okay, the more interactive fun part, we're going to talk about approaches to resolving inequities, and then we're going to talk about some barriers. So I realized that I animated the next slide, so let me see if I can do that. Okay, cool. I just didn't want to show you my answers beforehand. Oh, you cannot, you are seeing the cheat.
Yeah, we're seeing the wrong one.
Well, I'm just gonna stop sharing then at that point. Let's do the same thing. Go in the chat or unmute yourselves. For those that peaked, great job because you have a hint. I want to talk about what are some of your approaches to resolving inequities. How do you not only identify them, but try and remedy those gaps between how people work? That is a trick, Heather, but also meta, because that's also a real answer for this question.
Oh, okay, I'll just take myself as lucky on that one.
Would you actually go as far as to say that that's true too for, finding inequities?
Yeah, how much to remember? Yeah.
Yeah, like something just happened. Oh my goodness, what do we do about that now? And the trick really is, I agree with you, like it happened just like that and you're moving on to the next thing. So do you stop and pause and record it? Do you wait until you do the debriefing play, a retro, a 4Ls, a health monitor, something, or do you just note it? Next time we have a survey, I'm going to put it in there. Like that is a trick and that's a balance. Anyone have thoughts on that off the bat? To Heather's unintentional. I sort of gave my 2 cents, so we can also move on from that one. Dennis, bring people together and trying to find a common ground objective. Amazing. Amazing. As is actually, I don't think I'm allowed to reveal names yet for a panel that we'll be doing much later in the calendar year, but there is a consulting group who does a lot of that they've realized that in negotiation and compromise, and whenever there's like hard conflict between teams, oftentimes people start from the like, this is what I want, and this is what this other person wants, and we need to resolve the fact that these two things are different. When in fact, the moment they start from the common ground, the differences are a lot easier because they don't really see them as differences. They're like, oh, I see how that difference connects to this common ground. I see how your difference connects to this common ground. Really, it's just this thing. And they sort of like give each other more empathy and grace and so forth. So focusing more on commonality and figuring out how differences can still reinforce that same common thing is a great place to start. Anyone else? Cool. I did my friend who's an elementary school teacher says count to 7, because that is how long it takes for people who might have a question to say something. So I'm going to go through a few more items. Those are on here, but we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, being able to measure, like a change happened. Did that do the group better? If you have a pulse survey on team health, are you measuring again after a change happened? And did that make inequities go away? Multiple channels and timed opportunities for feedback. So another way to reduce inequities is to constantly reinforce the new policy or the change, or and do it on multiple channels. So the thing is, whenever change is new, it's the hardest thing to adopt. And I know that you all feel this way. It's also true for Atlassian. Whenever something is new, it's like, here's a Slack ping on this channel, but also 10 other channels. Also, here's a live thing. Oh, in your town hall, we're going to do a whole presentation on it. Oh, in your small group meetings, your team lead is also going to mention it. And you're going to get an email, and it's all going to say kind of the same thing, but in different ways. So you just have to reread it over and over and over. It may feel frustrating, but actually, it does one more thing than those other announcements do. Like whenever a policy change happens, like you get all those messages and you think that's all they're doing. They're trying to reach everyone. For an inequitable collaboration, when you have all these multiple channels and opportunities to feedback over and over, it's doing a second thing. It's actually getting people to feel like, oh, this is really important. They're thinking, oh, I need to pay extra attention to this. Like, oh, I forgot, because it's so new. They're affirming that this new way of working is in service of something that is going to improve everyone, respect everyone more, provide more access to work that perhaps people didn't have access to before. Reinforcing across all levels is really important. Oftentimes people think you just need the access to it. Doesn't matter who says it, so long as you get hit at least one time with the message. It's really important to see from your own peers in your team all the way up through senior management, and in large groups and in small groups, because it says that everyone matters in this message. Because sometimes people will think, well, if they're saying it to all staff, this is like targeting some teams, but this is not really applicable to me. Or if they're saying it just from your specific individual team lead, but not senior leadership, it's like, oh, okay, so my team lead really cares about it. It's like a pet project of theirs, but this isn't something that's really that important. So being able to reinforce it across different levels and functions is really important. We went over this, it's a little bit redundant, but there are lots of other ways you can recognize new culture adoption other than the things we mentioned. Same thing with cross-functional areas. And then also transparent decision-making. A bit of the science that has been happening over the last about 30 years is that when you acknowledge things, let me see a show of hands on how many people do internal pulse surveys, or whether it's for your team or the whole company, of like, where are you at? How's it going? Do you feel like you have what you need? Okay, so a decent, not everyone, but a decent amount of people. We've learned that in those surveys, just doing them isn't enough. And it actually could be damaging if you're doing those surveys, you report out, here's what we found, and then you don't actually have change. Or you have change, but it's not necessarily clear on what that change is. It is damaging and worse off than if you hadn't run those surveys. So you should not only run them, but like share out like, oh, here's what happened after this change, and we went up by 6%, and like, it's not where we want to be, but it's in the right direction. Or if it's not great, just admit it. Just say, hey, we tried a thing, didn't work, so we're not going to do that anymore, and we're going to try a new thing based on this new survey. So please be very participate in the survey. Tell all your teammates to participate in the survey, because we got to try something else new. If you say that, even if you're not up and to the right, like even if you're not moving in the trajectory that you're looking for, that is going to matter. Nobody cared. Well, I mean, everyone cares, that everyone wants things to be better, but the more important headline is that you want things to just be clear and transparent. If you are not, then the surveys will not only not be useful, but the people taking them will think it doesn't really matter. They're not doing anything with them. This is actually worse. This is just more time for me to have to do another thing that you're wasting my time on. And then whenever you do have actual changes, the documentation. So Mark, at the end of one of the plays that Mark mentioned was working agreements kind of offhand. And I think so. I might be making that up in my head now. Okay, yes, okay. But when a change is going really well, put it down, document it somewhere. It doesn't have to be the most visible thing that you see over and over and over, just so long as it's in a place where people can find it and know that it's part of your policy. That's a big thing. Okay. I'm gonna just show my cards. I was gonna do another like interactive, what do you think are barriers? But for time's sake, I'm gonna keep going. All right, let's do one at a time. Oh, look at how that animation is not great. I'm gonna leave that in there and be transparent about the work that I did on this slide and how
we see your presenter view, I think.
Oh man.
If
Okay.
you hit the little button, there should be something there where you can swap screens. That would change it.
Let me try.
See, yep, right there. There we go.
Yes. Now you just see the one mistake instead of all the mistakes. But okay. First one is translations and communication. Many of us work on global teams, but even if we're not in multiple offices all around the world, just the way that we communicate, we can have a lot of jargon, a lot of abbreviations or terms that are very business or corporate. Sometimes the way that we roll things out are not equitable because we're not even in service of communicating in the way that our teammates need. So sometimes we're actually inequitable in the way we're trying to be more equitable. Another one is intersectionality in data. So for those that do pulse surveys, even in debriefing sessions or retros, we look at data, we say like, oh, this data says one thing, clearly we need to move on it, but we're not actually double clicking and seeing that there's intersectionality, which means you can look at one cohort, overlap another cohort and realize that the data changes based on those cohorts. A quick example is, if you work at a company and you're trying to look at representation in terms of diversity numbers, and you're seeing like, wow, we have like about half and half, like 45% women, 55% men, or X amount other if it's not binary, and that's pretty good. But then you break it down, you layer on departments, and you realize, oh shoot. Actually, all the majority of women identifying folks are in HR and customer support and these things, but there's like no women in engineering and none in these other groups. Like actually, it doesn't actually look so good. Or you can click another layer like, oh, let's look by level. Oh, it's all like all the senior people are women. Let's pretend. I don't know where that is, but let's pretend. And it's actually lopsided in that way. So like make sure that when you're trying to identify where there is an inequity, you're taking intersectionality into account. Another area that is sometimes a barrier is that when people are looking for inequities, they're looking for where are their lower performance or lower productivity, not just on people, but on teams, on projects, on work streams, where the OKR is lower. And sometimes folks looking at doing an audit of where there might be gaps, they realize, shoot, I know why this is lower performing. And it's because like, these people are all too extroverted, or these there's not enough extroverts on the support team who communicate with our customers, and they're just too passive, or you'll look at another personality-based trait and kind of write off like the reason why there's an inequitable aspect here is because of people's personality traits versus skills-based. They're learning, Textio has some really good data that I think is coming out in 2020, early 2024, where they're learning job descriptions are getting a lot more biased because the people are looking for personality-based items on there. They'll say like, we're looking for for go-getters and self-starters and that kind of language. But what does that mean? And are you actually able to evaluate that A, on a resume, or B, during an interview? If you cannot evaluate those things, is that actually a helpful criteria to put in either a job description or a rubric for when you're evaluating a candidate? Skills-based is a lot more equitable. Personality-based has a lot of bias inherent into it. And then finally, sometimes, I think all companies are guilty of this. Small teams are also guilty of this because they think they are resource strapped. But if something is identified as inequitable and you're like, this is too big, this is too hard, you go, let's like not worry about that. That's like a big natural society thing. We can't deal with that ourselves. You can. You don't deal with it in society. You can deal with it within the confines of your specific team. If you ever think about the best teams that you've worked on, and you think about how much more vulnerability was than, say, compared to another friend group, a classmate cohort, a family even, it is possible to have different standards and different cultures in some groups than others. Like you can control, to environments to be more equitable if you put things in the right place. And we can see that simply because we feel differently on different types of groups that we belong to. So I know that we're going to lean into Slido and talk about Q&A next, but that was it. Just going over what equitable collaboration is, what it looked like, how to resolve it, and barriers to identifying it. Hopefully you learned a little bit on what other experts have been kind of grappling with and what other companies have found easy to work for them. And if not, I think like discussion and sharing more of information on the community forums or in person and for the live ACE events like this is a really great place to learn from each other and keep moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Christine. And thank you for sharing some things that are technically pre-release at this point. We appreciate being on the leading edge of that stuff. All right, moving right along. We've got one more presentation for you guys, and that is actually from a couple of our own leaders. From concept to celebration, we're going to just share a little bit about how we actually put these events together as a team. So with that, Susan, Heather, I will let you guys take it away.
All right, Susan's gonna get the show up and going here for us. Susan, my dear, you are muted. So while Susan's going ahead and getting that started, I'm just going to start with a little introduction here. So welcome to
you
our
see my
talk.
screen?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
We are good. I would have said something otherwise. So what we're going to talk to you guys about today is how we actually organize these events, from the concept of how they started all the way to our celebration and the mechanics behind these countrywide events that we put on for you. Using a lot of the stuff that, Mark and Christine have talked about today too. So go ahead, Susan. Our agenda is going to focus on the foundation and how this all got started out. We're going to move into the mechanics, the behind the scenes look for you guys. You get to see how the day-to-day of actually trying to do this will play out. And then the things we learned along the way, our insights, our discoveries, our lessons learned, and the process we go through for making that better.
So we're going to talk about the foundations and how it first got started, our great team event. In the beginning, there was Team 22. Now, one day at Team 22, we found ourselves in a group of Canadian community leaders. It was Susan, Jimmy, Brent, and Frida. And Jimmy said, "Hey, Canada, we should do a Canada virtual event on Canada Day." And thus it began. We roped in willing participants, Heather, Wave, Denny, JP Como, and we started planning for our Canadian event. And we had our first one on June 25th last year. So we thought it would be a one-time thing, it's just kind of fun, do a cross-Canada virtual event. We're just still in COVID, so it was great. Virtual events were hot, and, that was a fun thing to do. But we found it was very popular. It was really successful, and we really enjoyed working together as a team to put these together. So not a chance. After our initial Canada Day event, we followed up with a Canadian Appsgiving event. Remember, that's Canadian Thanksgiving, which is a month earlier than US. And then a March spring cleaning event. We now have a cadence of 3 virtual events a year, nicely spaced out and tied to uniquely Canadian celebrations. Over to you, Heather.
Yes, so the mechanics behind our success on how we do this. Go ahead, Susan. So what we've done is we've actually created a winning formula of how we structure these events. We always have 3 15 to 20-minute presentations. So as you guys are aware, this is presentation number 3. Then what we do next is we have our Ask Me Anything panel. This is our question answer session with all of our guest experts that are speaking. And this is the opportunity for you guys to ask any and all questions you want. And when we get lucky to get Alassians on board, we definitely look forward to the questions you guys have because we know they're wide ranging. Plus, we have our quiz at the end where you guys get a chance to win prizes. But it's always Canadian related trivia, as well as some trivia related to the topics we talk about. So when we do these events, what we do is we have to roll out all these roles. They're fairly large to organize. There are a couple roles that we have that are pretty consistent. So for example, our sponsorships, Susan is our sponsorship wizard here. She can coordinate all of that stuff very nicely, has lots of contacts. So that's her baby every time. I take care of the event page details. So the sign up pages you guys see, that's usually my portion of it. Frida is our graphics expert. She finds all the little images, our backgrounds, even these wonderful ones here that we're using now. And then Brendan is our quiz wizard. He's the one that designs our Slido quizzes and runs them. And then, of course, Jimmy, Denis, JP, Susan, and myself, we take care of all the speakers, moderators, and content. We tend to rotate through those roles a bit more, but in general, the 5 of us tackle that. And then, of course, with advertising, everybody has a role to play. We all have to advertise. We all have to get the word out. We've all got to share the LinkedIn, the Facebook, the YouTubes, the Twitters, all the tweets. And occasionally even Susan ropes in her co-leaders over on the Toronto side to provide some extra oomph there. Now, we use a few tools to do this. So some nuts and bolts behind the scene details is we use Confluence, we use Zoom, as you can clearly see, Slack, and Slido. Confluence, this is actually an example of one of our event pages from the first event we did, which is the Canada Day migration one. We actually use it to gather and organize all the details for the event page here. We also use it for planning out our task to each of us for our organization. And we also use it for brainstorming our ideas. Like coming up with these names is not an easy task, or coming up with these backgrounds. I know Frida's a wizard at it, but we still need a place to put our brainstorming ideas down for what we're doing. And then we also use Confluence as a central location for photos, retros, and anything post-event like lessons learned. Zoom, as you can see, we're using it to host our event. We use it to plan out our session. So we meet every other week or every week as we get closer to and go through the exercise of, well, event planning. And then we use Slack for when we can't get together for team communication. And then naturally, as you guys know, we use Slido for hosting the quizzes and the AMA questions. Now, our AMA backgrounds, as I said before, Frida is our expert wizard at finding these graphics. And here are a few examples of ones that she has found. We spend a lot of time testing out these AMA backgrounds. And we turn around and have to make sure that everybody fits in the spot, that the table's big enough for everybody, that we can all squish and get good and cozy on ski lifts and all sorts of things. So we have a lot of fun here, and I'm sure Frida has fun finding the actual backgrounds for us to play with.
So what insights and discoveries did we find out while working as a newly formed team after Team 22? And what lessons did we gain out of it? And this is what we want to just there. And after Christine's presentation, I'm wondering if we were equitable or not. So we'll have to talk about that later, team. So legendary team traits, alignment. We're aligned across Canada, cohesion. Us Canadians, we have to stick together because we have a big southern neighbor. Psychological safety. We're Canadian. We always say, I'm sorry. So it's a safe space for all. And our potential for innovation. You saw it with our AMA Zoom, our backgrounds, our sponsorships. We just have a lot of fun trying to put together very, very Canadian themed presentations. And what findings did we have? What were some of our notable findings? Well, we shared a common focus and purpose for our Canadian theme. We would help each other out if someone was really busy or absent on vacation. We're all very active on our Slack channel, so we can jump in anytime to help out anyone who's not got something done or is needing help with something or can't make a meeting. And we're very task focused when we get together on our planning sessions. Well, after we have a bit of a catch up and a laugh and, you know, share our migration woes or our moving woes or anything else that we're going through in our personal life, then we get right down to business in our planning sessions. And we make sure we use all the tools that we talked about in the previous slides. And then we encourage everyone to do their best, but also very forgiving for any little mistakes. We are Canadian after all. And most fun of all, we're now awesome at Canadian trivia. We've become awesome trivia wizards in the world of everything related to Canadian trivia. But I'm going to warn you guys, today's quiz is hard. We always get a preview of it with Brendan, and this is really, really tough one. So I'm going to be very interested to see how everybody does in the quiz.
They are definitely a lot of fun.
So I want to say a big thank you to our Atlassian speakers. Very fun to have not one, but two Atlassian speakers join us. Our participants, for all of you coming out on a beautiful summer afternoon. And we want to thank you for our Canadian sponsors, FMX Solutions, Highway 3 Solutions, IT Methods, Trundle, and Precipio. I also want to say thank you to Heather, Brent, Frida, Jimmy, and Denise for their support, hard work, and enthusiasm for these uniquely Canadian virtual events. We can't produce these events without all this great teamwork. So thank you. Yay, us. Okay, over to
Back to Jimmy.
yeah.
Thank you guys for doing that. And also thank you for taking on the actual presentation aspect. I think I've done every single one since we started this. So it was nice to take a different seat this time.
Yeah, nice role swap this time, huh, Jimmy?
So again, thank you to all our speakers. Those were wonderful presentations. We're going to take a quick second for a photo time because we sometimes forget to do this. So I'm going to give everyone a few seconds to turn on your cameras if you want to. Frida will capture our picture for us. So whenever you want to cut, do you want me to count it down, Frida, or do you want to do it?
Up to you.
All right. In 3, 2, 1.
Oh, hold on, we got more people
Hey.
coming on. Hey.
Hey, Canada.
Awesome. Thank you,
Hey.
everyone.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Perfect. Now, I believe it's our AMA panel time. Now, I've been sharing that code out throughout the presentation. If you want to join now is the right time to do it. I will throw it in the chat again. Please start populating questions. We'll give it a few minutes, and then I will pass it on over to Denis. Actually, oops. No,
Yes.
wrong way. And
I will work on getting our background up.
Take it away.
How do I make you back to be host?
I will take that back from you,
Okay.
actually. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. There.
This is our favorite part, just so you don't know.
This is our favorite part.
Yeah.
Oh,
If it's work.
it will work. It will work. Just takes a moment to set this up, that's all. There we go. Because this time, okay, we will. Yeah, we gotta get, yeah, come on, Mark and Christine, you guys gotta get good and cozy with me.
There we go. Just chilling on the couch.
Yeah, I gotta make myself good and small too. There we go. Oh, ah, I like this feature a lot. This is good to play with me. There we go.
So we do have 2 questions so far. Before we start, I just want to thank you again for the both presentation. I think we all need more collaboration during the summer and while everyone is on vacation. The first one will be for you, Mark. If there was a 5th play that you will recommend for a team, which one will it be? If for the quest, will
Yep,
you
if we had one
an
more
extra-
destination,
Yes.
it would be the I would call it the Sea of Manuals. That would be the destination. That's what I'm going to come up with. And what it is, the 5th play in, I just threw it in the chat because I totally saw the question coming. I'm like, oh, I'm going to put this in there. My user manual. And this would be probably, if I had to pick 2 of my favorite plays in the playbook, it's going to be Working Agreements and my user manual. And the reason is again, it goes back to understanding your teammates and kind of how, how do they work? What, honestly, who are they as humans? Because a lot of times, we talk to each other, even if when in the office, we'd have lunch and we kind of learn about each other, but we didn't really know that much. And so I love a user manual because it helps us be explicit around who we are and how we work. I worked with a customer last year where we did this, and they were on site. We went around, did the user manual. Everyone went around and shared it, and it was fascinating because this team had been working together for like a year and a half. And one of the teammates says, one was the questions was like, what are you passionate about? He's like, it's kind of silly, but I absolutely love Frisbee golf. And everyone's like, oh, that's cool. And then the manager's like, no kidding. He's like, I'm big into that. And he's like, where do you play at? He's, oh, I usually go over here. He's like, I was there last weekend playing. And so all of a sudden, there was something about the human element that all of a sudden they both didn't know about each other, but you felt the connection happen. Like it was one of those, like you felt it, and it's just such a cool thing. And that's why I always go to that play as such a powerful tool to help, create connection between people.
Good. Thanks for the answer. Christine, your turn. The second question we have is, do you have any information about what the research says about the status of equitable collaboration in enterprise teams all over the place? You're on mute.
Okay, sorry.
So
There are a lot of insights that I can share, but I'll pick just a couple for brevity's sake. One is for global companies, the companies that are bound by country rules where they have to share certain data. So for example, in the US, you have to share diversity stats, tenure stats, location stats, retention stats, just all the way down because it's just required by law. There are a lot of places in Southeast Asia that don't, and other parts of Asia that don't. And between the cohorts of the countries that have more laws to collect data versus the countries that do not, the countries that have more laws are just more equitable in the way that they're setting up their systems. Not necessarily because the culture is like that, but because when you have data and it is visible publicly because you report it to a government entity, you're held accountable. Other people are going to see it. They're going to want to know what you're doing about it. And so you're kind of, it's a forcing function. It almost makes you have to share things. The other thing is that companies that are much, much bigger have a harder time kind of getting their arms around making things more equitable, because there's just more types of diversity and groups to consider, which isn't a bad thing, because at the same time, the best examples of companies that are being more equitable are also the biggest companies, because they have more resources. So it's a matter of, are you having a hard time because there's too much to have to deal with, your company is too big? Or are you having a good time because your company is so big, you're willing to invest what money, time, people, to make things better? So the trends are polarizing on that insight, in that big companies are both the worst and the best at the same time.
Perfect. Thanks for the answer. Let me take one for both of you. How will you coach suggest get your team to run the play? Most teams, they never have the time to run a play. They always on a rush. So do you have any advice on that then?
I'll say, at least from my side, and Christine, I'd love to hear from yours as well. For me, I've never come across a situation where I can't convince a team to give me an hour. I just want 1 hour over the course of a couple of weeks. I says, that's all I want. And what I do is, instead of coming at it from here are 4 plays we're going to run, because that can seem a little daunting. It seems like, oh man, I got a lot of stuff I got to do. You just say, I just want an hour. Maybe we change our improvement time. If we do a retrospective, like, hey, can I switch things up this time? And I used to do that all the time with teams in the past. I'd say, hey, we're going to skip our retro this week, and we're going to do something a little different. And it gave me an opportunity to introduce some new concepts that allowed us to, whether it be, think about our working agreements, whether it be thinking about like our meetings and our rituals, because in the end of the day, even if all of it is about improvement at the end. So that's where I kind of would lean into those sorts of things. So just ask for an hour. That's all I always say.
Thanks.
Christine, what about you?
Yeah, I feel for the person who's asked this question, because it's a common one. It's like people are all on board in spirit, but like when it comes to actually making the time, it's like, do we have to? And so I'll say 2 things. One is, the more a team plays and feels its impact, the more willing they are to do it again and again and again. So like, really, it's just those first couple times that you need to get folks on board for. And so one, you can either make it a top-down thing. Whoever the senior most person is that is endorsing or sponsoring this, like making say, this is really important, not just like, you're going to do it, but more of like, I have done it. Look at all the great stuff that I've done, like kind of motivating people. And in that way, they kind of can't get out of it. They just have to participate. But if you don't have that strong sponsorship from someone else, another tactic would be take a meeting that's already in place. You have a regular team meeting, you have maybe like an hour that's already on the books, or 45 minutes that you can like push to be an hour, or a longer meeting where you could take a portion of it, a town hall, even like just repurpose a meeting that's already in place for the play, because it doesn't feel like, oh, I have to do yet another thing. Like, you were already going to show up, you were already going to be there. We're just using it for something as valuable, but it's different from what you're expecting. That's all.
And I'm gonna add another advice. I do run a lot of play in a lot of enterprise, and I will say, take the time to explain the benefit. Most people, they think you're gonna have a meeting just for another meeting, and we all know that people are tired of a meeting that have no end goal. Plays are there to solve one specific issue. So explain that specific issue that you want to solve with the teams. And most of the time they will take that time, because the issue for them is a pain point and they want to solve it. So that's my personal advice.
100%.
Christine, we have a fan here about the podcast, the Work Check podcast, and they want to know, when is the next season coming?
For those of you that don't know, Atlassian Works, where our fiscal year starts in July. So this is the beginning of our new year, which is historically lots of planning in Q1, lots of like, what's happening? So I will tell you that conversations are happening where we'd like to see the next season of Work Check be much more directly engaged with community and customers, and not just like soliciting feedback and questions, but like being on air. And for that to happen, a lot of things have to be in place. So thank you to anyone that came out. in Vegas to the live show. Thank you to anyone who listened to the episode and realized that we were in Vegas with community folks like yourselves. That has tipped the scales to a desire to make it more inclusive of hearing directly from both customers and community leaders. And for that to happen, there's just a lot of planning that has to finish in Q1, our Q1, which is this quarter. So I don't know is the answer. It's not this quarter because we're planning it, but
it's coming, right? So
sometime later. So like if it happens in the way that we're planning it, production wouldn't start until the next quarter. And so in the spring would be the earliest that it would debut.
so let's be patient. Heather, we have a question for you. What is the hardest part of planning these events like the one we are right now? And is it easier over time?
Well, it's definitely gotten easier over time. I know at the very beginning, our first one, I think schedule coordination was hard for the very first one because of all the time zones. I mean, come on, guys, you gotta keep me honest here. Because I think we all have a different perspective of what the hardest part of organizing this was.
I think at least on my end, I think the hardest is the time zone. It's pretty tough to get the right time zone that's fit everyone. And same thing when we have to meet together. But to create these events, we have 6 time zones in Canada. So it's difficult to manage.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely been the timing and the scheduling of like when we're going to do the events is definitely a challenge. I'm kind of tossed up personally if it would be that or sometimes organize like the content speaker organization. Those would be our 2 hardest challenges, I would say. Would definitely be those. I mean, but naturally, if the rest of the group here, if you guys have a different opinion, I know Denise shared his.
I would agree that it's often just getting like sometimes we'll think of a speaker that we want and then we form a theme around it that's Canadian, or other times it's a Canadian one and then we just have to find speakers for it, which is hard, can be hard too. I do want to say, everybody here, if you have any ideas, please toss them our way. You can just send us an email from the Toronto_Canada or any of the chapters. Just email us any ideas of content you might like to see that crosses Canada. I do think the apps giving is kind of pretty cool. We'll probably do that one again, but yeah.
And what's our big goal for the next 12 months, for the next year? Do we have a big goal for the next 12 months?
No, but we definitely got a retro topic now for next week.
Yes, we need to have a big goal. I will say one of the goals that we wish, at least on my end, is I wish we could get more people around these events. The time zone and everything, it's getting difficult, but if we could reach out to more people for Canadian event, it could be.
I would probably say that would be a good goal for us for the next year, is to increase our attendance for these events. I know we get a lot of our VSPs or RSVPs, but I definitely think, growing that would probably be a good goal. And that's something we could definitely talk about next week.
Yeah, and that's why I say it, because we do have people, so talk about it to others. I know that a lot of people, let's say, that attend Montreal events, they don't attend the Canadian one. But the thing is, feel free to share and feel free to give us any ideas that could bring more attendees.
I think one of our goals is to it's not necessarily our goal, but we're hoping, and I'll put a shout out to Nolan, who I think was on this call, is that we would like to see more Canadian chapters. So every time there's a Canadian, or we think there's a Canadian chapter, we're like trying to hunt that person down and say, are you real? Are you starting? And we'll give you an easy entry into the into the ACE events by joining us. So I think one of our goals would be to expand our Canadian chapters to include more.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I have 2 last questions for Christine. One is from me and the one from Susan that you gave. Are we, from what you saw from the presentation from Susan and Heather, Would you say that we are an example of equitable collaboration?
I will say that there's a ton of equitable things happening here. First of all, the use of Slido and the fact that it can be anonymous, or you can put your name on that, and the fact that people can weigh in without having to, more passively, by just like upvoting things. I'll say that there's multiple mediums here. You have audio and visual here on the video, but you've also got chat. No one can see where I'm pointing, but you've also got chat on the Zoom. You've got Slido going on as well. Like the fact that you have multiple mediums is really good. And just Dennis, from your moderating of like, you know, keeping topics spaced out is also a sign of like making sure that you're giving equal voice to different things. So compliments all around for all of those.
Thanks.
those bits.
Thank you.
And my personal question that I have for you, I do talk to a lot of managers, and these days it's all about efficiency, productivity. And the question that I have is, what are the benefit of what you will say? Is there any benefit of equitable collaboration?
In general, to a
Yeah,
to a
in general.
company, or yeah. I mean, we know that things like trust, psychological safety, divergent thinking, all of those things promote innovation. All of those things promote more diversity because you're willing, you have your guard down, you're invested. It improves retention rates. From a business perspective, it's actually the right way to go. You're going to make more money by saving on having turnaround for employees. You're going to build better products and services because you're going to have more innovation from that diversity, and you're going to have more committed folks. So it's going to take less work to have to communicate things because people will get it faster. It's going to take less work to have to rally people to want to do something because they're already committed. So by investing in equitable collaboration, it's not just like the right thing to do because it's the right thing to do. It's good for business. And the research shows that, and we'll also publicly show that externally next year.
Cool. So thanks for all the answers. We had some great questions. I'm happy about them. We're a bit worried about getting questions, but we got a lot of nice one. It's quiz time. I think we're gonna have fun now.
All right.
And I'm anxious to see who's gonna win.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Brandon.
will say to people, do not close Slido yet. We're going to be using it for the quiz. So we will just pop that up one more time once I. Perfect.
All right, so join the quiz. Yeah, no, you just, if you haven't already, this is now the time to join that. If you are a community leader or, or a sponsor, you may be ineligible for the prize, but we'll see how things go. So we'll give people just a minute or two to log in if we haven't already.
Mark and Christine, get in here.
Oh, I'm there.
Oh,
Competitive.
We want
I,
you to
was,
play.
I was like the
Okay.
first one, Susan.
Okay.
That's the first
Right
one.
there.
To
He's
know
been
how much
sitting there this whole time.
I'm like, let's do this thing.
we wanna see how much you know Canada.
Yeah,
I know, right?
We're gonna show
Okay.
your markup.
I
Especially.
know, right? Exactly. Let me change my name.
And
real
they are
quick.
tough for us. So
All right, I think we've got 15 people in there, so we're gonna assume everyone wants to be in there is in there, so we can get started. So first question, how many time zones are there in Canada? 4, 5, 6, or 7? See if you were paying attention during the AMA. I saw the answer got dropped there.
yes.
Oh, snap.
I did the int.
You completely did.
10 seconds. All right. And the vast majority of people went with the correct answer, which is 6. We have Pacific, Mountain, Central, Ontario, Maritime, and lastly Newfoundland. So, all right. What variety of pizza was invented by Sam Panopoulos in London, Ontario in 1962? Margarita, Canadian, Hawaiian, or vegetarian? fast fingers matter, because in tiebreaker, it's going to come down to who spent the least amount of time there. But, all right. Let's see what the. Oh, nearly everybody went with Hawaiian, which is the correct answer. Yes, so Hawaiian
Delicious.
pizza comes
Thank you,
from
Canada. Thank you.
I am going to disagree on that one. I'm not a fan of Hawaiian.
And we'll save the great debate for another time.
Yes.
Yes, we will.
All right. Which comic book character lists Cold Lake, Alberta as their birthplace? Green Arrow, She-Hulk, Wolverine, or Red Guardian?
Brendan, I see you got the typos fixed up. Not
Yes.
she hike.
Yes. That's the importance of testing things before you launch
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
All right. And there we go. Yeah, pretty easy one for most people. There it is, in fact, Wolverine. So good job, everybody. Oh, where can inequities in collaboration occur? Distributing resources, offering opportunities, designing teamwork practices, or all of the above? See if you were paying attention when Christine was giving her great presentation there earlier. 10 seconds. Ah, nice to see you guys are all paying attention. It is, in fact, all of the above. So, good job. What city is regarded as the sunniest in Canada with an annual average of 333 days of sunshine a year? Calgary, Halifax, Winnipeg, or Vancouver? Ten seconds here. All right. Looks like the majority got the right answer here. It is, in fact, Calgary. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the warmest city in Canada, but it gets the most sunshine. So, which Canadian songwriter crafted a hit song inspired by the tragedy of the sinking of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald? Leonard Cohen, Gordon Lightfoot, Neil Young, or Gord Downie? All right, 5 seconds. All right, yeah, no, most people probably, if you hadn't heard of it, it was in the news earlier with the passing away of the correct answer, which is Gordon Lightfoot. So, good job, everybody. How many points are there on the maple leaf that appears on the Canadian flag?
Oh.
9, 10, 11, or 13? Rest assured, even if you're Canadian, you don't necessarily know this one off the top of your head. Tricky one, you gotta do some counting.
Yeah, that's the question. How many of us are actually counting and trying to visualize?
You got a flag, you're like,
Yeah.
That is one thing that I would say, Mark, though. Not sure how many Canadians actually consider they have a flag in their house
oh.
compared to Americans that are more likely to have a flag on their property.
America.
So if you didn't know but you guessed, it looks like the majority did get the correct answer, which is 11 points. So
Job.
another question from the presentation. Which of the following is a barrier to identifying inequitable collaboration? Transparency in decision making, documentation of working agreements, feedback that is personality based versus skill based, or recognition of new culture adoption? 10 seconds. Right. All good. Nice to see. Again, the majority getting a correct answer there, which is the feedback is personality based versus skill based. All right. How many points are there on the maple leaf that appears as the emblem of the NHL team, the Toronto Maple Leafs?
No,
11,
that's just not fair.
24, 31, or 42? Now we're getting tricky.
I'll give you a hint. It's more than on the Canadian flag.
Oh, gee, that only narrowed it down slightly.
That's not a hint.
Mhm.
Your advice was too late.
Answer.
I already wasted my
Yeah.
my foot on
Oh,
that
here
one.
that's
Ooh.
a little trickier, a little no more diverse verse there, but it is in fact 31.
Oh,
I've got,
yeah.
yeah, a good number there. Which Canadian actor partnered with American actor Rob McElhenney to purchase the Welsh Association football club Wrexham? Ryan Reynolds, Mike Myers, Jim Carrey, or Seth Rogen?
Good pronunciation on Rob McConnell.
I Googled it, and
Right.
if you do so, I recommend it. It's amusing. All right. Oh, wow. Everybody's a big fan of Welcome to Wrexham because it was, in fact, Ryan Reynolds.
I think they're buying a second team too.
Yeah.
I heard.
All right. New Brunswick produces approximately 1/3 of the world's supply of which popular salty snack? Popcorn, crackers, peanuts, or French fries? And well, looks like, and while they don't grow all the potatoes for them, it is in fact French fries. I imagine they get quite a few from PEI, but they produce about 1/3 of the world's French fries.
Hmm.
Right. Okay, just 2 questions left to go. When shaping your team, which play would you run to create a shared understanding of your team's rituals and communications practices? Team poster, roles and responsibilities, working agreements, or network of teams?
I better get this right.
Hopefully.
Like crap.
All right, and there's the breakdown, and it is working agreements. Did you get that right, Mark?
I did. Yes.
Awesome.
It's the small things in life. Small
All
things.
right. All right, I appreciate we're basically at time here, but one question left to go. There are 38 national parks in Canada. Which individual province or territory has the most of these parks? Alberta, British Columbia, Ontario, or the Northwest Territories? Okay, 10 seconds to go. All right, again, the majority got the correct answer, as it is British Columbia. British Columbia has 7 national parks, and Northwest Territories and Ontario follow behind with 6 apiece. So let's see how our winners did. All right, so congratulations, Tanya Graham. You were top overall. Susan and Heather, you both did very well. We've got Ariel and Martin, and if we can just get contact info for you guys, and let me check to see.
Yeah, let's
So,
check this
so eliminate
second.
number 2 and 3. So we
Yeah.
have Tanya,
So
Ariel.
Tanya, Ariel.
So there's
Jimmy, you were 6, So beneath that we've got Melquar. Sorry, if I'm not-
Mel, great Mel. Okay.
and then Carolyn.
Yay, Carolyn.
Yeah, so I think is that 5?
Uh,
Oh, I'm
Tanya,
on the-
Ariel,
55.
Martin.
I'm in the top? No way. I feel like I got so many wrong.
Oh no, I don't think we can show. Can you show the points from there?
Yeah,
I want to
can
see how Mark did.
I did
Mark,
really
yes.
bad. Really bad.
Same, same.
So Christine, you beat Mark.
But
Oh.
it's great to see Tanya that did better than people that did yesterday the same.
Yeah, that have already
we
done the
did
quiz, so-
terrible. We did terrible yesterday. But we already did the quiz, so don't count Heather and I because we actually
Yeah,
already
no,
did
no.
the quiz. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so
I
Tanya-
purposely slowed down today.
Tanya
Yeah.
must have been cheating. She got all of them right. Way to go, Tanya.
Good job.
okay, so
Okay,
yes, if
so-
you can just DM us the your contact info, and we will get you a gift card by our great sponsors.
there. So what we have, thank you everyone for coming. If you can email Brendan's account, he will make sure that you get your gift card out of that. That is for our winners. Once again, thank you to our speakers and our sponsors for this event, and to all of you for attending it. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank
This was
you,
so fun.
everybody.
Yeah,
How
thanks for
many?
having
How
us.
many did Mark get?
No.
I think I got 4. I'm gonna go with 4.
You got
Maybe
all,
I got
you got
5.
all the presentation questions.
I
correct.
did. I got those right.
Yeah. That's what counts, Mark. That's what counts.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I said, I had to get those.
Thank you, everybody, for
Thanks, everyone.
participating. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much, Mark and Christine, for coming out to Canada.
Exactly. Awesome. Bye, y'all. Thanks again.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.